Is Baylor the biggest dark horse in the Big 12 going into 2019? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
Matt Rhule is entering his third year in Waco, and he has quickly turned around this Baylor program. In his first season, he just went 1-11. But last year, Baylor went 7-6, including a thrilling bowl win over Vanderbilt, which was our top bowl game of the 2018-2019 postseason. Now entering year 3, he has the Bears poised for an even bigger year with his best team yet since he arrived 3 years ago. And Baylor is a potential dark horse pick in the Big 12 in 2019. And that's all because of their offense, which returns 8 starters, including their star quarterback, Charlie Brewer, who is probably one of the best quarterbacks in the entire Big 12. He threw for over 3,000 yards last year, 19 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, and also added 7 rushing touchdowns. So Brewer can also beat you a little bit on the ground. Not as big of a dual threat quarterback, but can get the job done. And he has a great supporting cast this year on the offensive side of the ball, including 3 running backs in John Lovett, JaMychal Hasty, and Tristan Ebner. So they have 3 very capable running backs to take that edge off of the passing game. And then to go along with the passing game, he returns a very experienced core of wide receivers. So this is by far the best offense that Rhule has had since he took over this Baylor program, and the best team he has had since he took over this Baylor program. Defensively, they returned 7 starters, but they allowed 31.1 points per game last year. So they have to improve defensively if they want to win 8 or 9 games this year and maybe break through as a Big 12 title dark horse. But I do think this defense will improve, and I think they're going to be relying a lot on that linebacking core and their secondary, which I think are the 2 areas with the most experience on this Baylor defense. So Baylor, certainly a team to watch out for in 2019. We have them starting off 3-0 on the year with easy games against Stephen F. Austin, Texas San Antonio, and then a bye week before going on the road to face off against Rice. None of these games should be an issue for Baylor. And if they struggle in these first 3 games, then you're going to have a problem, and Baylor might not be that dark horse pick that we have been mentioning. But we think they start off 3-0, which is good for them in the sense that I think they will rest all of their starters in the second half against these teams. I mean, by late third quarter, fourth quarter, a lot of their starters should be able to rest in these 3 games, which will get them prepared and fully rested when they kick off Big 12 play against Iowa State. And this is a very, very intriguing game. Iowa State, a team that returned 16 starters fully, beat Baylor 28-14 last year at Ames, at Iowa State. But an Iowa State team that I think is going to be even better than they were last year. Brock Purdy is back at quarterback, finally getting a full year under his belt. Even though he lost Akeem Butler, he brings back a very solid crew of wide receivers, very similar to Baylor. And even though they lose David Montgomery at running back, I don't see much of a drastic change offensively for the Cyclones. Defensively, they also return 8 starters. It might be even better than the defense they had last year. So this is going to be a matter of, even though Baylor has home field advantage, can they exploit weaknesses in this Iowa State defense? Can Charlie Brewer lead this team to victory through the air? Or can Baylor's defense finally step up and shut down what I think will be a potent Iowa State offense? Expect this game to be relatively low scoring. But I'm going to pick Baylor to win this game. I like that this game is at home. I like that they're going to be rested. Iowa State will be more battle-tested because of a somewhat tougher schedule before this game. But Baylor, I think, gets an upset win at home over the Cyclones, who are absolutely Big 12 title contenders. But they start off the season 4-0. They then go on the road to face off against Kansas State. And last year, Baylor beat the Wildcats 37-34, so a thriller there. And had Kansas State won that game, along with many others, they could have gone bowling in Bill Snyder's final season in Manhattan. This game, though, on the road, Chris Klieman from North Dakota State taking over this Wildcats program. And I've said it over and over that I think Klieman inherited the best team out of the 4 brand new coaches in the Big 12. I think he inherited the most talent and the best situation. I like the quarterback situation with Skylar Thompson. I like the defense with the Wildcats this season. So Kansas State, despite getting a brand new head coach and going through a lot of changes, could very well make a bowl game in 2019. This is a tough game for Baylor, no doubt in my mind, but I think they have enough. I think the experience and the consistency at head coach, Matt Rhule entering his 3rd year, like we said, I think that gets him another close win, probably very similar to that 37-34 win that we saw last year. Baylor goes on the road, beats Kansas State, and just like that, they are 5-0, 2-0 in Big 12 play, 1 win away from bowl eligibility. They remain home to face off against Texas Tech. Of course, last year, bowl eligibility was on the line for both of these schools. The winner of that game was going bowling. The loser was staying home. And Baylor showed up for that game, winning 35-24. Of course, that spelled the end of the Cliff Kingsbury era for Texas Tech. This year, Texas Tech, like Kansas State, like West Virginia, like Kansas, brings in a brand new head coach with Matt Wells coming over from Utah State. And he did great things with the Aggies and kind of breeded a great quarterback in Jordan Love, one of the best quarterbacks in the group of five, and maybe even the entire nation. Wells known a lot for his running game and a lot for improving the defense and having a solid defense, which we saw at Utah State. I think the defense for Texas Tech will be much improved in 2019, even better as we get farther down the road during his tenure. But I don't think it's enough to stop this very potent Baylor offense this season. Baylor gets to host this game. Usually this game has been played at a neutral site, usually in Arlington at Cowboy Stadium. But I think Baylor gets to win at home over the Red Raiders. And just like that, Baylor is 6-0. Obviously ranked probably with this, at this point, probably top 15. 6-0. People are certainly talking about them as a Big 12 title contender. But if you look, these are their first 6 games. Half of them should be wins easily because of their non-conference. The schedule gets a lot tougher after their first 6 games. Then they go on the road to Oklahoma State. They have dates against TCU, Oklahoma, and Texas. So it gets a lot tougher down the road. And we'll start with this game against the Cowboys. Oklahoma State coming off a bye week coming into October 19th. Last year, Baylor won this game they won 35-31. So once again, another thriller that had it gone the other way, Baylor would not have been going bowling. But it was a phenomenal game against the Cowboys. They have questions themselves at quarterback, Spencer Sanders or Drew Brown, the transfer quarterback from Hawaii. But they do have a good running back in Chuba Hubbard. Their defense will be, I think, better by October 19th. They're going to struggle early on, but I think they're going to get better as the season goes on, especially 7 games into the season. You never want to doubt Mike Gundy. Boone Pickens Stadium, not an easy place to play. I think Oklahoma State beats Baylor in a series that has seen some classic and major games, top 10 showdowns in recent years. I think Oklahoma State beats the Bears, hands them their first loss of the season. Baylor 6-1. They get a bye week on October 26th, going into a Halloween showdown against West Virginia. And luckily for Baylor, West Virginia will not be as scary as they were last year. West Virginia loses Will Greer at quarterback. They lose David Sills and some wide receivers. They do return Kennedy McCoy, and Austin Kendall comes in as a transfer quarterback from Oklahoma. So I think West Virginia will be able to put up some numbers offensively, especially with a coach like Neil Brown coming in as one of the brand new head coaches in the Big 12 this season. But West Virginia will struggle in his first year, much like he struggled in year 1 at Troy. I don't think he has all his pieces together yet. Look for West Virginia to kind of get back to form next year. But coming off a week of rest, I think, and pretty much happened was that 12 days off, including that bye week. I think Baylor at home takes care of West Virginia after they got annihilated by them last year. Baylor 7-1 with this win over the Mountaineers, still in the Big 12 title hunt, and maybe to some in the college football playoff title hunt. Although with that non-conference schedule and a loss to Oklahoma State, a team that I don't think will be elite, I don't think I'd go that far. They then go on the road to face off against TCU. They get a long break there from October 31st to November 9th, so getting more than just a week's worth of rest. Last year they lost to TCU, though 16-9 at home, could not get the offense going, and TCU really stepped it up towards the end of last season, winning their final 2 games just to clinch bowl eligibility, and then winning the Cheez-It Bowl over California. This TCU team, though, once they figure out who their quarterback's going to be, is going to be pretty dangerous in 2019. I think it's going to be a major bounce-back year for Gary Patterson. They have a solid running game with Siwo Olanolua and Darius Anderson, Jalen Rager at wide receiver, and a much-improved defense that had a lot of injuries last year but will benefit them in 2019. I think TCU is going to be tough to stop. Expect a major bounce-back year from Gary Patterson's squad. Baylor on the road, I think, falls to TCU despite losing at home to them last year. Baylor drops their second game of the season against the Horned Frogs. Luckily for Baylor, it's not very often you get to see this. They host the top 2 teams in the Big 12 this season. They have to come to Waco, Oklahoma, and Texas. And we'll start off with the Sooners. Last year, Baylor dropped 33 points on Oklahoma. The problem was that their defense allowed the Sooners to score 66 points. So they lost by 33 points in Norman last year. This Oklahoma team, I don't think will be as good as they were last year. But they are going to be good enough to probably make a return trip to the Big 12 championship game and maybe slip into the college football playoff. but I think you're going to see a drop-off in some of the numbers last year. They bring in Jalen Hurts at quarterback, but of course I believe Kyler Murray was the better fit, was better for them last year. But I think Jalen Hurts will do fine. Lincoln Riley, a quarterback whisperer. We've seen what he's done with 2 previous transfer quarterbacks. He'll do the same with Hurts. They've got a dominant running game, solid wide receivers, and a defense that should improve with a lot of returning starters. Despite all of that, Oklahoma has to be on the lookout for a major upset here as we near the end of the season. I think this game's closer than the 33-point margin of victory was last year, but Oklahoma does beat Baylor on the road, and Baylor drops their second straight. They then get Texas at home, and this is a game that Texas has to watch out for. If you have watched our Texas predictions, or if you've watched our Iowa State predictions, you know that we have Texas falling to the Cyclones on the road. Well, right after that loss to Iowa State, Texas has to come on the road to face off against Baylor. Texas cannot afford to be hung over after that Iowa State game. And keep in mind, Baylor last year in Austin only fell to Texas 23-17. Had a chance to win it. I think they were on the 17-yard line of Texas and had their pass fall incomplete. They score, they win the game. So Baylor gave them a fight on the road last year. Now they get to host them at home with an even better team. Problem is, I think this Texas team is better than the one they had last year as well. Texas comes on the road, narrowly beats Baylor, much like they did last year, but do not be surprised if Texas drops this game or struggles mightily if they do indeed fall to Iowa State like we predict. But I have Baylor losing to Texas at home, dropping their 2 biggest games of the season when they get to host the top 2 teams in the Big 12. And they close out the season on the road against Kansas. Last year, Baylor took easy care of the Jayhawks, winning 26-7, as did many teams last year against Kansas. This year, obviously one of the most intriguing teams in the Big 12 because of the hiring of Les Miles. And I think this Kansas team will get there under Les Miles. I think he's a phenomenal hire. I think he's going to get them to bowl eligibility maybe as soon as next year. Baylor's defense has to shut down Puka Williams at running back, and that's really about it. That's going to be the strength for Kansas across the board this season. Even though it's on the road in Lawrence, of course, not going to be an easy place to play under Les Miles during his time there. I think Baylor goes on the road and beats Kansas fairly comfortably on the road, clinches a win there, and that gives Baylor an 8-4 season in 2019. And that is nothing to frown about if you are a Baylor fan. You went from 1 win 2 years ago to 6 regular season wins and then 7 with that bowl win, and now 8 regular season wins in year 3 with a potential win in a bowl game to get you 9 wins. Matt Rhule has his team going in the right direction. It's been a very quick turnaround, and he continues to build his Baylor program up. They could be even better in 2020. But I'm a huge fan of the Bears in 2019. I think 8-4, very respectable, and will get them a spot in a very solid bowl game in 2019. So guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert, and go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. And I can promise you that is a deal you do not want to pass up. So join our team, sign up today only at thegridironexpert.com. And guys, as always, thank you for watching us here. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.